It was a Friday night, and I was ready to unwind in Los Santos. You know how it is, the work week's been a drag, and all you want is to disappear into the digital sunset with your crew. I hopped onto GTA Online, eager for some casual carjacking and maybe a heist if the crew was up for it. Little did I know, my night was about to take a turn for the extraterrestrial. I was customizing my character, putting on my lucky leather jacket and giving my signature pink handgun a polish. I was ready to paint the town red, or at least cause a little bit of mayhem. As I cruised down Vinewood Boulevard in my cherry red convertible, a strange green glow pulsed in the distance. It was like nothing I'd seen before in Los Santos, and trust me, I've seen it all. I cautiously approached the light, my curiosity piqued. It was emanating from a group of figures clad in neon green alien costumes, gathered around a souped-up UFO parked smack dab in the middle of the street. These weren't your typical Los Santos weirdos. They were packing serious heat, and their body language screamed, "Abduct first, ask questions later." Before I could hit the gas and make a hasty retreat, I found myself frozen in place, my hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. The city lights blurred around me as my heart pounded in my chest. I had heard rumors about strange occurrences in this part of town, but I never thought I'd experience one firsthand. Suddenly, a high-pitched whirring sound engulfed me, drowning out the noise of the bustling city. It was as if the very air around me was vibrating with an otherworldly energy. I glanced around, trying to locate the source of the sound, but it seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere all at once. The car started shaking violently, and the green glow intensified, casting eerie shadows on the dashboard. My mind raced with possibilities. Was this some kind of elaborate prank, or was I really about to have a close encounter of the third kind? The glow grew brighter, almost blinding, and I could feel the car lifting off the ground. "Oh, this is bad. This is really bad," I muttered, bracing myself for the worst. My thoughts were a jumbled mess of fear and disbelief. I had faced many dangers in GTA Online, but nothing could have prepared me for this. The car's shaking became more violent, and I could feel my body being pulled in different directions. The last thing I remember seeing before everything went black was the mischievous grin of a green alien as he pointed a strange device toward my car. His eyes glowed with a sinister light, and I knew in that moment that I was at the mercy of beings far beyond my understanding. The device emitted a bright flash, and I felt a sudden, overwhelming sense of weightlessness. When I woke up, I was strapped to a cold metal table. The surface was hard and unyielding, sending chills through my body. My wrists and ankles were bound by metallic restraints, and I could barely move. The room was dimly lit, with strange pulsating lights casting an eerie glow on the walls. I struggled to make sense of my surroundings, but everything felt surreal, like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The green glow was everywhere, illuminating the faces of the aliens crowding around me. Their features were both fascinating and terrifying, with large, almond-shaped eyes and elongated limbs. They moved with a grace that seemed almost unnatural, and their expressions were unreadable. I could feel their eyes on me, studying me, as if I were some kind of specimen. They were chattering excitedly in a language I didn't understand, but one thing was clear. This was no ordinary abduction. Their voices were high-pitched and melodic, almost musical, but there was an underlying urgency to their tone. I tried to listen for any familiar words or phrases, but it was all gibberish to me. My mind raced with questions. What did they want from me? Why had they chosen me? I was in for a wild ride. This was just the beginning of an adventure that would take me to the farthest reaches of the galaxy and beyond. I had no idea what lay ahead, but one thing was certain. I would never look at the night sky the same way again. The aliens' chatter grew louder, and I braced myself for whatever came next, knowing that my life was about to change forever. The UFO lurched, throwing me against the restraints. The cold metal dug into my skin, and I could feel the vibrations of the ship as it powered up. My heart raced, and I tried to steady my breathing, but the sheer force of the takeoff was overwhelming. I could hear the roar of something as we shot off into the sky. It was unlike any engine I'd ever heard, a deep, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate through my entire body. The view outside the small window was a blur of colors as we ascended rapidly. Peeking through a gap in the alien huddle, I caught a glimpse of Los Santos shrinking below. The city lights twinkled like stars, and the familiar streets and buildings became tiny dots. It was a surreal sight, almost beautiful, if not for the circumstances. The aliens were surprisingly chatty, even if I couldn't understand a word they were saying. Their voices were a mix of clicks, hums, and strange intonations. They seemed to be in a heated discussion, occasionally glancing in my direction as if debating what to do with me. One of them, who seemed to be the leader, kept pointing at me and then at the sky, making gestures like he was explaining the meaning of life. His eyes were intense, and his movements were deliberate, almost theatrical. It was clear he was trying to convey something important, but I was completely lost. Look, I've been abducted by enough weirdos in Los Santos to know that freaking out wouldn't help. Panic never solved anything. So I took a deep breath and tried to assess the situation. The aliens didn't seem hostile, at least not yet. Maybe there was a way to communicate with them, to understand their intentions. I decided to play it cool, at least until I could figure out a way out of this mess. My mind raced with possibilities. Could I find a way to escape? Was there a way to sabotage the ship? Or maybe, just maybe, I could find a way to communicate with these beings and negotiate my release. For now, I had to stay calm and observant, waiting for the right moment to act. Section 5. They come in peace, for now. The UFO zipped and zoomed through the air, pulling off maneuvers that would make even the most seasoned pilot break a sweat. The way it twisted and turned, defying the laws of physics, was nothing short of mesmerizing. It was as if the spaceship had a mind of its own, dancing through the sky with an elegance that was both terrifying and beautiful. It was terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. The adrenaline rush was unlike anything I had ever experienced. My heart pounded in my chest as I tried to take in every detail of the alien craft. The technology was far beyond anything we had on Earth, and it was both awe-inspiring and intimidating. To my surprise, the aliens seemed more interested in showing off their ride than probing me. They communicated through a series of gestures and sounds that, surprisingly, I could understand. It was as if they were saying, "Check this out," and "Isn't this cool?" Their enthusiasm was infectious. They were like a bunch of teenagers who just got their driver's licenses, eager to show off their new toy. They zoomed around, performing stunts and tricks that left me both impressed and slightly nauseous. Their playful nature was a stark contrast to the menacing image I had in my mind of extraterrestrial beings. Except their car happened to be a spaceship. The interior was sleek and futuristic, with controls and displays that looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. It was clear that these aliens had advanced technology, but they used it in the most carefree and fun-loving way possible. I had to hand it to them. These guys knew how to party. They had an energy that was contagious, and before I knew it, I was joining in on the fun. We laughed, danced, and shared stories, even though we came from different worlds. It was a surreal experience, but one that I wouldn't trade for anything. The inside of the UFO was like a rave on steroids, with colorful lights flashing and music blaring. It was a sensory overload, but in the best way possible. The atmosphere was electric, and it felt like we were in the middle of an intergalactic celebration, complete with pulsating lights and thumping music that sounded suspiciously like dubstep. The beats were hypnotic, and the lights seemed to move in sync with the music. It was an otherworldly experience, and for a moment, I forgot all about the fear and uncertainty. I was just another guest at the ultimate alien party, enjoying the ride of a lifetime. Section 6. Escape plan, engage. But even alien raves get old after a while, especially when you're the guest of honor. And by guest of honor, I mean prisoner. I had to get out of there. I noticed a loose panel on the wall and managed to pry it open. Inside was a jumble of wires and blinking lights, which, conveniently, also happened to be my specialty. Now, I'm no rocket scientist, but I've hot-wired enough cars in my day to know my way around an engine, even an alien one. With a few well-placed twists and splices, I managed to reroute the power, causing the UFO to sputter and shake. The aliens, finally noticing my escape attempt, started yelling at each other in panic. I took my chance and jumped into the pilot's seat, gripping the controls with a mix of fear and adrenaline. Let's just say, flying a UFO is not as easy as it looks in the movies. The UFO spun wildly out of control, narrowly avoiding skyscrapers and power lines. I wrestled with the controls, determined to regain some semblance of order before we all became a giant green glowing pancake on the pavement. Just when I thought my joyride was about to end in disaster, the UFO stabilized. With a surge of relief, I managed to pilot the ship back towards the bright lights of Los Santos below. I landed the UFO, well, landed might be a generous term for the controlled crash I executed, in a deserted alleyway. I scrambled out of the wreckage, heart pounding, and watched as the UFO sputtered and smoked, its alien occupants groaning inside. I couldn't help but laugh. I mean, who gets abducted by aliens and lives to tell the tale? As I caught my breath, I took one last look at the battered UFO. The aliens were starting to stir, and I knew it was time to make my exit. I gave them a jaunty salute, just in case they were watching, and disappeared into the night, the sounds of their bewildered cries fading behind me. It's safe to say that Friday night turned out to be a lot more exciting than I had planned. I learned a few things that night. First, never underestimate the weirdness of Los Santos. Second, alien technology makes for one heck of a joyride. As I made my way back to my apartment, the city lights seemed to twinkle with a newfound amusement. I had stared down extraterrestrial abductors, hot-wired a spaceship, and lived to tell the tale. Who needs a quiet night in when you can have an adventure like that? I guess that's just another day in the life of a gamer girl in Los Santos. And hey, if those aliens ever come back, I'll be ready. This time, I'm taking the UFO for a spin outside the city limits. Until then, I'll be honing my piloting skills and brushing up on my intergalactic slang. Just in case.